Hello everybody, welcome back to Connor here, and I am here with your Chelsea versus Leeds United preview. Initially I was going to do a 3 things to take away from the weekend's game or a player focus, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that exclusive to my Patreon account. So if you want to see sort of a bit more exclusive Chelsea content, go over there and check that out. We've got some dedicated members over there who really enjoy the content, so thank you so much for that if you have and are going to do that as well. Guys, if you wouldn't mind liking the video, we've had a bit of an upturn in subscribers over the past couple of days, so thank you so much. It's probably me coming back to a little bit of a consistent pattern, which I was off for about 2 weeks, so thank you so much for that. And if you haven't already, you know what to do. Hit a like on the video, and we are back here with your Chelsea preview. Now, this one, it's a little bit more in depth for me because I've got, we've spoken already about the tactical analysis, we've spoken about the strategy that Chelsea are going to deploy, but I also want to talk about Leeds' strategy and what we're going to do in light of Marcelo Bielsa's press conference, where he doesn't really give that much away, but we know how Bielsa works, don't we? So as we already know, if you've watched my tactical preview, if you haven't, please go check it out. It's a little bit probably in more depth than this video will be about Chelsea's lineup and tactical sort of prowess and how they go about things, but productivity-wise, Chelsea are extremely aggressive. They're an extremely aggressive side, and there's almost a sort of Dortmund feel about Chelsea. The Dortmund feel with Marco Reus, Mario Götze, Lewandowski, that sort of Dortmund team. The Jurgen Klopp team, if you will, the Liverpool team. And it's almost like, Frank Lampard has decided to go on that route. And I'm still not massively impressed by what Frank's done in terms of, as I've just said, productivity. I'll need to see a little bit more from him and his tactical nous. And this is the perfect game for Frank to prove that and shut people like me up. But it's going to be a really interesting game. Are they going to be aggressive? Are they not going to be aggressive? We've seen the system from last season change for Chelsea in terms of they were just gung-ho last year. Defence didn't matter. This year, obviously, with the the additions of Chilwell, Thiago Silva, Mendy, who, may I add, has kept 9 clean sheets already for Chelsea. Defensively, they look a lot more sound than they did last season, and we saw that a little bit against Tottenham Hotspur. It was a little bit of a stalemate. And this is why this game's going to be really, really interesting for me. A lot of teams will turn around, and a lot of people, pundits, teams, managers, whatever, will turn around and say, Leeds United, they're just all out attack. Well, yeah, but we've kept 4 clean sheets this year in the Premier League in our first season. So that's a massive achievement for us as well. We've only conceded 1 against Wolves, 1 against Manchester City. So Leeds are not this defensively inept team. So it's going to be really interesting to see if the game follows that similar blueprint as it did against Chelsea or as it did against Arsenal. So yeah, that's going to be, and that'll, for me, it'll depend on how Frank Lampard sets up. If he's a little bit more reserved, like they were against Tottenham Hotspur, or if he just goes gung ho, the 4-3-3 attack. You've got the 2 8s and the 6 in midfield, and if he just wants to make it into a basketball match, let's go, Frankie boy, let's go, and we'll turn it into that, because we've not had that for me, Leeds United. The 3-4-3s, the 4-4-2s, the 4-5-1s, the 5-4-1s out of possession and in possession have been something that Leeds have struggled with. But if Frank's going to go to an offensive, direct 4-3-3 with 2 8s, including potentially Havertz, Kante as the 6 and Mount as the other 8, that's going to be fascinating, because that's going to turn into a game where it could potentially be end-to-end, which always favours Leeds. It naturally does. And that, I think, the other flavour of that formation, how I'm going to call it, the Jurgen Klopp formation, is the fullbacks always push up. You got James, you've got Chilwell. As we alluded to in the tactical preview, we spoke about James a heck of a lot. For me, he's the key man, and I've said that, I think it was a couple of days ago I recorded the video. He is the key man. We restrict him, perfect, and that's all going to be down to, our left-hand side. But that link-up play with Ziyech, the 1-2s, the overloads, the underloads, that is where Chelsea are the most dangerous, and their productivity coming from the right is where, if we stop that, I think we're going to give ourselves a real chance in the game. This 4-3-3 with 2 8s, which is just going to be mental, because it's going to be like 5 players, as we said in the tactical breakdown. It's going to be about 5 players coming forward at a time. If they do that, then okay, fair enough, but we're going to have to be disciplined as well. You're going to have to get the likes of Matthias Klick, who obviously we deploy this man marking system, so I don't know who Klick's going to follow, whether or not it's going to be Mount, or, so whether or not that means Klick's going to be a little bit more defensive in the game. Obviously, you're going to get someone like Calvin Phillips picking up probably a Kai Havertz, so that's going to be really interesting to see where Klick's positioning is. Another player who I think is going to be absolutely pivotal in this is, we spoke about how Chelsea are not afraid to go direct, and they're not. You look at the players that they've got up front, they've got Giroud, they've got Tammy Abraham. They're the two sort of striking options they have. They usually play Timo Werner as an inside-outside forward. And what they can do is they can vary it as well. They can go direct, or they can just play out from the back. What Lampard seems to be trying to encourage is the play out from the back, which is really interesting. As I said, they're not afraid to go long, but he favours playing out from the back, which has obviously been the introduction of a goalkeeper who can actually pass out from the back. The cultured nature of Thiago Silva and Zuma, who's been overperforming this year. He's been absolutely brilliant. Have they faced a team like Leeds United, though, who are going to be pressing from the front? I don't think they have. And have they really dealt with that press that well? I don't know if they have. I don't know if they're structurally set up to defend the high press, and that's where it's going to be really interesting, because last year they weren't able to do that, obviously, and they didn't have the defensive reinforcements that they have now. But I don't know if that transition has happened fully over to this season with Frank's Chelsea. I still think that high press, they're going to be susceptible. And I think this is where Patrick Bamford could have an absolutely unbelievable game. If he's dragging Thiago Silva into the channels, if he's dragging Zuma into the channels, getting assisted by potentially Rodrigo, potentially Rafinha going forward, Matthias Klick, this is where there's going to be a lot of pockets of space. And for me, this is where there's going to be a really interesting sort of dictation of play. Rafinha, he's the big one for me as well. Rafinha is going to be the one, because what happens, guys, when teams come forward, they've got the fullbacks who press extremely high. In terms of Chilwell, in terms of Rafinha, what do we talk about in the breakdown? We spoke about Rafinha. Now, if he's on that right against Chilwell, he's got the pace, he's got the trickery. On Ben Chilwell, as I've said, he's susceptible. I am still not convinced by Ben Chilwell. You guys might disagree. There might be some Chelsea fans on here who completely disagree as well. I'm not convinced by him. I think his delivery is very, very good. I think his delivery from deep is very good as well, which the Chelsea fullbacks are very good at deploying. I don't know if his defending is on point, and I think someone like Rafinha, who is a superb winger, a tricky winger, a direct winger, which no defender likes, with good end product. If he can start going at Chilwell, if they're being pushed high as well, we know how quick Leeds are on the counter-attack. If he's been pushed, if Chilwell and James are coming high, if they're pressing high, this is where Leeds can get them. And this is where, if they're going to come out in a 4-3-3 and acting as if it's going to be sort of a basketball game, this is where Leeds can get a lot of joy. Genuinely, I'm feeling positive about this one. And once again, I'm just reiterating what I said in the tactical breakdown as well, guys. The three forwards is the one that sort of gets me. They almost play like three striker types, and that's what I'll call it. Striker types. It's not two out and out wide men and a striker, which I naturally think it should be if he's trying to build out from the back, if he's trying to implement this system where they build from the back. You look at us in that season a couple of seasons ago with Kemar Roofe, how Kemar Roofe stature-wise isn't a huge physical striker, but we were able to build with him as our solitary front man, and we were able to get players around him. They need to do that with Timo Werner. They're not doing that with Werner. They're sticking him as sort of an outside forward, someone with the efficiency that Werner has, the quality that he has is sort of been stuck out wide, and you've got maybe Tammy Abraham who's going to be in that central role, really. So they play three really out-and-out strikers in terms of Ziyech as well. I think Chelsea's productivity would be a little bit better, and I think they'd look a little bit better if they had two wide men and a striker, instead of sort of the three. But, I'm not here to fix Chelsea's problems. Chelsea haven't got any problems, really, have they, at the minute? They're a brilliant team. 4-0 dispatching Sevilla, But I do think their attacking output was better last year. I do. I think defensively they've got better this year, but their attacking output was better last year. And he's got the conundrum of Giroud or Abraham, and that's another little spark of discussion here. Giroud or Abraham, who do you pick? Abraham's going to be better in the press in terms of Chelsea coming forward and pressing Leeds from the front, but Giroud's a monster in the air. An absolute monster in the air. But then you can draw comparisons with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who we kept out of the game. He's still lodged in Robin Koch's pocket. So I do think the Leeds centre-backs as well enjoy the physical battle. I think Cooper enjoys it. I think Koch enjoys the battle against these tall centre-forwards. I do think Giroud's a little bit of a different breed, though. I think he's just arguably, top 3 in the world in terms of, as I always say, aerial competency. But I said Robin Koch is one of the best in the Premier League in my point of view. Aerially, I think he's brilliant in the air. He barely loses an aerial battle, so that's going to be really interesting to see there. Who he goes with, but that's going to be that's something that we need to look out for, obviously, because Leeds might need to adjust. But when I watched them against Spurs, I wasn't massively impressed. Like, it was the passing as well. The passing, the selection of passing wasn't ideal. It was very sloppy. Spurs neutralised their right-hand side, which I think Leeds should do. They neutralised that right-hand side, not with any sort of unbelievable tactical rigorous way. They just stopped it. They overloaded players on that side. Chelsea weren't able to create the patterns of play, and it broke down, and they were sort of restricted, and Chelsea didn't really do much. And that's where I do wonder. We're all thinking it's going to be a basketball game, but is it going to be like the Arsenal game in terms of score-wise? Is it going to be like the Everton games in terms of score-wise? Are both teams going to feel each other out? Is Frank going to go gung-ho from moment one? I'm not sure if I think it'll go that way. It's going to be really interesting to see regardless. But yeah, that'll be the really interesting tactical battle for me. The beauty of this game as well is I always think, going behind to teams like a team like Tottenham, a team like Manchester City even, or Liverpool. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I still think I'd be more nervous at going behind against these teams. I think Chelsea always give you a chance when you go behind. I think defensively they've got much better, but I think there's always a chance with how Frank plays to get at them. I always do, and I think the options off the bench, it's going to be dependent on how Leeds start, but the options off the bench are pivotal. Obviously, Poveda, Costa, Rodrigo, if he doesn't start, I think we can seriously hurt Chelsea. Now, Alioski is going to be another main talking point, isn't he? Will he start? Now, it's really interesting with Alioski because left back, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't rate Alioski. I don't think he's a left back, standardised left back. I think a left wing back is much, much better. I think centrally he's been all right, though. Centrally he's been okay, and I'd be tempted, just because of his recovery rate in the middle, to start him there instead of starting him left back. I think Dallas would be, a big decent left back, but that's going to be a really interesting dilemma for Marcelo Bielsa. Is he going to start Alioski in centre midfield because he has done before, or is he going to start Dallas in centre midfield because he's done that before? Is he going to start with Alioski at all? Is he going to start with Dallas at all? I would love to see Rodrigo in there. For me, though, Rodrigo is the one that starts. A lot of people are talking, I presume a lot of people are talking about his defensive capabilities, but we don't really concede that many when Rodrigo started, or been on the pitch. So I think that's going to be really interesting, because I think Rodrigo going forward is going to really hurt them, and I think defensively he's good enough to deal with what they've got as well in terms of those sort of 2-8s and getting back. But going forward, fitness-wise, quality-wise, I'd love to see Rodrigo and Rafinha and Bamford sort of morphing into a front three going forward, and I think that is where we can really, really hurt them. But once again, the man marking system is going to be tested. They're a quality team, and a quality team, and we're not expected to beat them. We're not expected to get a point against them, and that's realism. That's how you've got to look at it. That's not being negative. That is how it is. As I kept saying in the last video, the metric of how much they've spent, 85 million on Havertz. I mean, come on, we're in a different world at this moment in time to Chelsea, and it is one of those where the way we win this is because we're a unit. And I think at the minute they're a team full of individuals, and I think we've seen through the tenure and the time with Marcelo Bielsa, the unit wins, the unit prevails always, and that's going to be really interesting to see against Chelsea. As I've said before, will the luxury players want to keep up for 90 minutes and grind it out? Are the front three, the striker types, as I like to call it, are those front three going to be able to diligently follow Leeds going forwards? Are there going to be pockets where Leeds can expose throughout the game? 100%. But what we haven't seen enough of in the past 2 games, and I'll include Everton in this, is chances taken. That has to improve. You know that, and I know that. If that game with Everton ended 0-0, we'd have all been massively frustrated. It took a moment of brilliance from Rafinha to solve that game. Arsenal, we should have stuck 3 or 4 past Arsenal. Everton, I mean, that literally could have been a cricket score. You know, it really could have been. And we have to start taking these chances. We've gone from taking chances at the start of the season to not really taking chances at all. You know, our XG is always ridiculous, 2.3, 2.4 and above. You know, and our conversion rate isn't good enough. So we have to start taking chances, and that's on the front players. That is why I want to see Rodrigo starting for Leeds United against Chelsea. Guys, that is going to be it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also, get your score predictions in. I want to know, who do you think as well is going to be the key tactical battle? I think Phillips is going to be so big in this game again in terms of restricting Chelsea, you know, building and stuff like that. So let me know what you guys think. As I said, get your score predictions in, guys, and I'll see you in a bit.